Traditionally, the beginning of a year has been a propitious time for people to try to change some part of their lives through the custom of making resolutions. I heard on NPR this week that 1/3 of Americans make resolutions. And change is something that both liberals and conservatives say that they want. Liberals are apt to think that they want change so that things will be better in the future, while conservatives think that things are already worse than they used to be and desire changing back to the way things were in the past. For Zen Buddhists, however, being fully in the present is what is important. The past having already deceased and the future being yet born. The present is the only place where we are actually alive. But unfortunately, it is there that change causes us difficulty. The truth is that we don't like things to change. And Buddhism says that the fact that everything is always changing is in itself the reason why we suffer. This could make being in the present seem like having received a life sentence. But our embracing being in the moment is what liberates us from the tyranny of the self. It is little wonder that New Year's resolutions end up being broken, for living in the future can be as illusionary as wanting to return to the past. Both reflect putting too much emphasis on one particular category of time. Nevertheless, many people will start sitting in hopes that they will resolve their not liking the way things are in their life. They look to changing their karma, as it were, but meditation doesn't work that way. As karma is a word for the recognition that every act will have an effect, it would be a karmic act to wait impatiently during sitting for the bell to ring when our knees or back or butt hurt, pain being the cause of this, and waiting the effect makes it a karmic act. However, the effervescence of thoughts becomes clearer because in sitting we practice over and over not paying attention to whatever thoughts are passing through our mind. As a result, in time, we come to accept everything that is happening to us in our ordinary life, as we have always been doing just that with our thoughts in meditation. Karma doesn't cease to exist, but we won't be limited by it once we become open to ourselves and then to everyone and everything else. Karma will merely be accepted and faced as everything is. Meditation thus takes us to where we are no longer completely under the control of our thinking. Our acceptance of everything also frees us from everything, karma included. And thinking turns out then to have been the problem all along. The thoughts that have made things seem real to us are now seen as also concealing reality. All that I have said so far today, for example, and ever have said, has been composed of thoughts, of course, and neither yours nor mine will be able to get us where we need to go. As Krishnamurti pointed out, People think too much. Even the my and mine that get expressed so forcefully in the terrible twos of childhood have their origins in thinking. And once we start believing in thinking, the usefulness of it makes it hard not to continue to have faith in it. However, thoughts only represent who we think we are. And in practicing, we go from thinking they define us to recognizing them as something extra that comes between our body and things as they are. One reason why New Year's resolutions are so hard to keep is they present us with another set of thoughts that separate ourselves from what is real. Indeed, the only resolution that makes sense is one to sit as regularly as we can. There is no better way to keep from being monopolized by thinking as doing meditation, which does not depend on thinking. This doesn't mean that we ought to stop thinking every day. The foolishness of this goes without saying, but by not overusing it, particularly when thinking about things concerned with ourself, we don't have to rely on thinking to take care of ourselves, because we will be confident without it. The best advice for us then is to continue to concentrate on practicing just sitting. Thank you. And here's Jane. Let me go back up here and begin. And Jane, a little closer. Hi. Anybody have anything to add or to say or to whatever you want to do? Yes. Yes, Mike.
In the beginning of your talk, you were talking about change. I had a weird little thought, which was that change is such a part of life that it's not really change. It's the way it flows, and our thoughts latch on to a certain part of it and say, that's going to be, I don't want this different. I don't want this to be this way or this way. But in all reality, change is really not change, because it's like a river flowing. It's just, everything just keeps flowing along, and we keep latching on to what we thought would be normal or the way things should be. And so our thoughts get caught up in the fact that we're fighting something that really isn't what we think it is, I guess, if that's the way that we can put it.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I cut out a paragraph because but the paragraph is only in my mind now a little bit, but everything changes is seen as the negative thing because it causes us to suffer. But in fact, like what you're saying, Mike, is that ultimately everything changes is something very positive. And the reason it's positive is because we are all working together to do things. And so that the changing is the best way for things to be. We can't live without changes. So it's only because, as you said, we get caught up in thinking about it or getting stopped by thinking about it that it causes us trouble. Yeah. Thank you.
Matt raised his hand.
Oh, Matt, thank you. Matt?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, there it
That was a nice talk, Peter. Thank you. With regards to dealing with change, my experience has been, particularly in the last few years, with the amount of change that's been going on in my own life, is that the difficulties that it can create, even during periods where sitting practice is can be too much of a challenge to do for physical reasons, can still what is the word I'm looking for? When you take a piece of meat and pound it to get it to, tenderize. And tenderize you enough so that going back to practice, you find the process of sitting facilitated by the experience of being forced to let go during a period of heavy change in circumstances. And so I just want to offer that up as encouragement in the event that any of us go through periods of heavy change in our lives, not to be discouraged, even if you find that you're not able to sit. So,
Thank you.
and by sit, I mean meditate.
Yeah. No, thank you. Of course, we all know, well, actually, for a long time in our lives, there's our ordinary life, and then we have a little period during it in which, relatively speaking, half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, in which we separate ourselves from that and we sit. And of course, that acts as a balance to our ordinary life. But the real reason for sitting is to have the effect on our ordinary life, which of course is expressed as being, as to actually be aware all the time of what you're doing. And in being aware of it, you are also accepting it. So yes, a lot of change can take place even when you're not sitting, Matt. That's very, very true. And the fact that you can't, and so you're just turning around and making it so that ordinary life connects to sitting, rather than sitting connects to ordinary life, or something like that. That didn't come out perfectly well. But anyway, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Chris?
So a thought came up that I just wanted to submit, and that is that everything changes is neither negative nor positive.
Mhm.
And it's got that in common with shunyata, or emptiness. And furthermore, everything changes is maybe a more graspable or coherent way to understand the concept of emptiness.
Well, that's true.
I
Yeah,
submit that.
that's a very good point. Yeah. Yep. That's true. Huh? Jan, you want to comment on that?
Just let me think about it a little bit. I have to ask him to repeat it.
Yeah.
Well,
Summarize it quickly.
everything, which another thing I thought of is, wasn't that like Shunryu Suzuki's, like one of his main central themes was Buddhism is just everything changes?
Oh, definitely. Yes. He would very, very often bring that up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah.
So the thoughts that I had were,
Yeah.
because between Mike and Peter, it was suggested everything changes is negative, and then Peter said everything changes is positive. Well, the thought I had is it's neither negative nor positive. And I remember hearing that emptiness, or in Sanskrit shunyata, that word in Sanskrit means not negative and not positive. Now the explanation I heard was more mathematical, but I think it applies more broadly. So in short, everything changes is just another way of saying or articulating there's the concept of emptiness.
Yeah, that does sound right to me too.
Okay.
I was just thinking that even in anything that changes all the time, not only the good things disappear, but so does all the bad stuff.
In attachment, blossoms fall, and in aversion, weeds spread.
Yeah, all the bad stuff disappears too, if we let it.
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like it's sometimes well, there's no need for comparatives or superlatives, but I don't just grasp to a wonderful thing that is being taken from me because of change. I often sometimes will make bad things stick around longer than they need to because I'm holding on to them.
That's exactly what happens. Yes. That's right. That's exactly what happens.
If I'm lucky, I can sometimes catch myself doing that. Be like, hey, whoa,
I know.
go away if you just stop holding on to it.
Yeah, it's thoughts.
And it's like,
It's thoughts. You see, it's thoughts that are doing that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, everything changes is an expression of the relative world, and shunyata is what connects us, or comes closest to us, connecting the relative world with the absolute world.
The harmony
So
of difference.
yeah, so there is some difference there.
Okay.
Not exactly the same, but yeah, but it's a good comparison, certainly. Yeah, Mitch.
Let me unmute here.
Yep.
Everybody talks about a river, right? Changing, the river's flowing, but I've always thought about it as a boat on that river. Because you could either just get caught up and just flow with the river, or you can have a rudder and you can steer that change. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
our choice to sit in Zazen is manipulating the rudder, and we are controlling our own change. And we're not just a cork floating on the water. We have choices to make. We're responsible ultimately in our own lives for our choices.
Yeah, that's for sure. Don't you think also, by the way, that you're also, I mean, the rudder and metaphor is you're going downstream, but actually, it's often life often seems like we're going upstream against the current of the relative world, and so it can be different too. But yes, yeah, that's the point. The point is not taking control of your life, but in a way, but when you accept your life, then you are in control of your life. So because you are just, whatever there is, then you face it. Whatever the current is, no matter what the situation of the water is, then you're always you adapt very, very naturally to that.
The first discussion that you and I ever had was about the saying things are as they are, and not fighting that reality of things are as they are. And I think that's a point that you're trying to bring up. You have to accept things,
Yeah.
and not that you can't do something about it, but there's also certain inevitabilities that you can't control.
That's
And
also
there's certain inevitabilities you can control.
yeah.
So I shouldn't say inevitabilities, or certain things you can't control.
Yeah.
And that's again, comes back to my thing about having a choice to sit Zazen and put a hand on the rudder. So
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Nice to see you guys. Hi,
Yeah.
Jane. Yeah, it's funny. The change, just saying the word, everything changes. And out there in the world, it's usually such a slow change that, I don't see it. But when there's something that changes in my life, what I find is the thought starts and then the feeling starts. And that's where I start to get stuck is the feelings. The more I think, the more those feelings, the more I don't allow change to happen in my life. And that's lately what I realize is when I fight change, I'm not living in reality. And when I accept change, somebody mentioned it, it seems to go way quicker. The thoughts, the feelings, when I just say, this will change. My daughter's going through some relationship problems and stuff. And I told her, I go, just remember, everything's going to change. Don't get caught up in one solution because that's how I spent my whole life. And I don't want to see you do that. So this here really hits home for me to stay in reality, because when I deny change, I deny reality. And then I cause myself the crazy feelings that somehow I can think my way through something that's changing that I have no control over for the most part. For the most part. Yes, sitting is, yeah, it's it's not something that has come easy to me, but the benefits from it is starting to be realized of sitting. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your talk today.
Thank you. Very, very well said. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That relationship between change and thinking and trying to hold back the change. And of course, that's what causes us so much trouble. And you added it in feelings because, yeah, thought leads to feelings. Feelings don't lead to thoughts, thoughts lead to feelings. Everything begins with thought.
Yep.
Yeah. And, yes. Matt? Oh, you're off. We can't hear you.
Just adding to what I had said later before, excuse me, I'm on a lot of pain medication. A little hard to think straight. This process of being tenderized and having to face a bunch of change that you can't escape, and the fact that it's an ordeal is set up in sort of an artificial way through a retreat, whether it be a zazen kai or a regular sesshin. And the only difference would be that we're free to leave a sesshin or zazen kai if we choose. But if we choose not to, we are trapped in that. Even though we're sitting, a lot of change is taking place. The pain is getting worse. You go through phases of where it's easier, and then it gets harder, and then you feel numb, and then you feel frustrated with your practice, etc. And then towards the end, when you've been tenderized by this ordeal, you begin to find the practice settling down, and that's a bit how I feel, having been through the last few years, and I think it's just important to remember that when we go to a retreat, that we really are entering an ordeal, and we're doing it intentionally to force us to confront dukkha, confront the nature of dukkha, and let go. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Spencer?
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So I get benefit from sitting. I know this, but I don't know why I sit. And every time in New Year, I sort of question why I sit and resolve to sit more. And I see that always think there's some attainment in it, but I'm sort of exhausted at this point, and I don't see that I have any rudder. I see Zazen as putting myself into neutral and getting into the stream, not being in drive, not being in reverse, not having any influence, but giving up all influence and knowing I can't change. And only then I feel like there's some manifestation within my inner self. So, it is that time of year where I really have those conversations. Well, like maybe I should be sitting 4 hours a day, things like that, because of attainment and, really seeing how empty that type of thought is. But that's all what I got to say on that. But I did find something interesting during your talk on change. I actually made me think of the David Bowie song Changes, which I had never looked at the lyrics, but he has a very interesting lyric. I watch the ripples change their size, but never leave the stream of warm impermanence. I'll just leave it at that, but I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, that's really
it is,
beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, of course, the problem with attainment, I mean, things do change. I mean, and they do, as it were, kind of seem better. But finally, attainment is another kind of thought or thinking. And as such, then it gets in the way. Because for one thing is for certain, is that if you're trying to attain, you cannot just be who you are. And if you can't be who you are, then you will not change. Because that's the only point, is we are learning how to be who we are. Not in the sense of self, but in the sense of just being. We are just being. And let me add a little a codicil here, which is the length of time that you sit is of less importance than the fact that you are sitting every day, or close to as much as possible within the realms of your life to be sitting every day. So I'm looking at the life of friends who, well, have sat a lot more than me, like someone like Daigaku, who lived in a temple for 27 years, and which they practiced really hard there. That whether you sit a long, very, very long time, it doesn't speed things up. It's the constancy and the effort of the constancy, as it were, that kind of accumulates in us. And when you're talking about tenderizing the meat, it's kind of a funny image comes to my mind, because Emma is the person that takes care of us now, and when Emma is asked to make, for example, a chicken salad, what she does is take a piece of chicken that she's already cooked, and she begins pounding on it. And she pounds and pounds and pounds, and finally it becomes, and then she has a little mayonnaise, and there's her chicken salad. Yes, yes, Rachel.
Thank you, Peter.
Mhm.
It's good to see both of you. That everything changes. I mean, how can that be disputed? But I really relish being able to notice what really changes versus my opinions, anticipations. In other words, to actually be quiet enough to really notice what's changing instead of my narrow focus on, oh, that didn't turn out the way, and miss the profound movement that's going on. But my question is, in order, thinking is a tool in this mortal life. Usually you want to think better. Do you know what I mean? It's like a tool, and you want to learn how to sharpen, you want to learn how to, they're a tool. It's a tool, a set of tools. Which remains handy, literally handy. And but the moment when it shifts from beloved, when thinking shifts from beloved, my beloved, I can think my way. When, how can I put it? It is not primary anymore. To me, I guess I don't think I can sit my way out of leaning back into thinking from time to time, but that Zazen, that at least to me has revealed a world in which thinking not only is just a tool, but it's no longer beloved. That's the word I'd use. Like beloved misery. That without it, I don't even exist. And that moment where it's just one of several. It's just a faculty. It's there. It just seems bliss. Am I completely off base, Peter?
No, that was very, 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 very accurate. We can think ourselves to death, you might say, when you get to the greatest thing, and because Buddhism really teaches strongly, you aren't who you think you are. Thinking is something within that equation, as it were, or that realm. Who you are and thinking have no connection whatsoever. But it is a tool, and very, very, it's the most useful tool that we have. We have a lot of tools we need, but anyway, thinking is really up there high, but we make it, it's like trying to make a Trump into, as it were, into a king. We make thinking our king, and then we become slaves to our king, our thinking of, or king or queen. I don't really need king here. I happen to be on Trump, so that happens to be a male.
Leave
But
it there.
yeah, but just don't. There's no reason to distrust thinking, but there's a reason to, not think that thinking is all, because then you really get lost. And that's where all of anxiety, all worry is based upon, that's a feeling, of course, but it's based upon thinking. And worry is a thinking that we really don't need. Because when worry isn't there, when we really accept whatever we're facing, good or not, pleasant or unpleasant, we can use one to you good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, it's the fact of just facing what's ever there. That's the main point. Main point. Mitch.
So a student comes to a martial arts master and he goes, how long would it take me to get a black belt? And the master goes, 10 years. And he goes, well, if I train really hard every day, day and night, how long would that take? 15 years. So I gave, I did a Dharma sharing a little while ago. And I talked about how bad my eyes were and how transformative Zazen has been. But for me, my personal experience is that Zazen changes your brain. It doesn't happen overnight. It's an ongoing process, because of the plasticity of our brains and our ability to learn and grow and change. And that's what Zazen, I said in my talk, that Zazen for me is just practicing being normal, right?
Yep.
All I want to be is
Right.
normal.
That's right.
That's my goal.
Practicing
I don't
being-
expect any kind of glorious anointing or anything. I mean, so that's been, it's just part of my life, a beautiful, necessary part of my life.
Thank you, Mitch. That's very nice. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Mark.
Okay. Can you hear me over there from that microphone, everyone? Oh, okay, good. All right. I like the metaphor of the river and having a little, well, you could have a rudder or no rudder, your choice. It's always the stories we tell ourselves is where we're going and where we've been and where we want to go to and what resolutions we want to attempt and how deeply we hold on to those fantasies. I think the meditation part is we begin removing ourselves from our wants, desires, wishes, fantasies of the story we've been telling ourselves for a really long time. And that allows us to actually really see the river, to actually experience and realize that all the changes are, well, basically it's Wu Wei of just allowing nature. Nature is the change. We are part of nature, but we like to tell our stories that we're our own stories in our heads is that, well, we're not a part of nature. I make up my mind, I do what I want, I be who I want to be, I'm going to get that or whatever. Or I don't want that, as you pointed out. What do I fear coming up? I fear getting fat, so I'm going to go work out. I fear getting old, so I'm going to become young somehow with all these new treatments and things like that. When we just settle into this natural thing of being on the river, allowing ourselves to flow, there isn't so much, if we don't think about it, don't create parameters, don't create so many goals, we can find the currents or just exist and allow that grace to fill us and that relaxation and no fight, no having to face things. It's only having to be things, only to allow things. And that allowing allows us perhaps to merge into our adversaries or things we never ever wanted to be part of. And we merge with that and then we become something else. But whatever it was, you still, if you're not thinking about it so much, you're always kind of the same. It's that same undercurrent, the same thing that when we strip away all our thinking and even how our bodies are doing and finding that core of this sentience, that's all I can say. And that is what's constant. That's the one constant thing I can see. It's the one thing creating the change and accepting and moving with the change. And so I think it's been very interesting to hear everybody's ideas on change and struggling with it. And it is a struggle because I forget myself. Well, I don't have to have a story about this. it's really catching yourself with those stories that you've been, who knows where it came from.
Well, thank you, Mark. As had been so many this afternoon, this noontime here. Yes,
Okay.
yes, please.
Just one last thought.
Yep.
We've had a few different metaphors regarding the stream and how that relates to Zazen. I just wanted to chime in with mine.
Sure.
That is, for me, sitting Zazen is like swallowing a very big rock. So I sink and am held tight to the bed of the stream. So I'm staying put and the stream is flowing on around me, but I'm very, very uncomfortable.
Don't drown.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Rock.
No sense in being a rock, I can tell you that. I don't know. Chris has been at Tassajara many times, and so in the winter, if it's a rainy season, if there is it's one of those things where it's El Nino or something, and it's a really rainy year, you're sitting in the old days, the Zendo is where isn't where it is now, which is up a little bit away from the stream, but we were sitting 20 feet from the stream, and the rocks would come thumping down the stream, boom, boom, boom. Oh, Mitch has got something else going on for quite a short amount of time. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
I mean,
Yeah, Jane?
I want to just say one more thing about this. All the time in practice, for me, there's nothing as amazing as meditation. And I think I was really fortunate in starting meditation in Tassajara, really, because otherwise I'm sure I never would have stayed with it. I would have given up. I could just barely get going in it as it was. And it was so humiliating the first year, having to move all the time. And I wanted to be like the really strong guys who were sitting there without moving a muscle. But I couldn't. I had to keep shifting my position so much that the lady next to me said one time, she said, all it takes is one person to move and the whole line starts moving. She said,
I started to move. It started the whole time moving.
Well, she said the first person to move should be shot. And that was always me.
Who was that, Jane?
That was Fran.
I thought your friend.
She never moved a muscle until I started moving. But anyway, that was my first experience there, and it was so humiliating. I couldn't live with it, so I couldn't leave, and have to live with that. So I had to keep trying to sit because other people were sitting, so I kept trying. But I'm sure if I had tried on my own, I never would have. Anyway,
Where was Peter sitting? You didn't stay to see because of
he
Peter,
was on the other side of the Zendo at that point.
so you could keep an eye on him.
I was sitting with all the new people because I had just come in, and so we were all trying very hard not to move, but I couldn't not move.
Every older picture I've seen of Tassajara back in the day, you were standing next to Peter.
Yeah, well, we shifted finally. That helped a lot. That helped a lot anyway. But I just remembered that one comment, and I thought that's true. The first person who shouldn't be shot. Anyway, so what I wanted to say about Zazen is, it is such a remarkable action that it starts something in your life changing that you don't even know how it changes. You don't know how it moves. You don't know what the effects are bit by bit. You only know that you suffer all the time about every little thing. Drives you crazy. You're not at the front of the line. You're not at the back of the line. You're in the middle of the line. It's always something that makes you feel really, you just can't bear it. And yet you do, because you're with people who do. And somewhere along the line, I went from being a person who could blow up at the drop of a hat for the smallest insult to being a person who stops jumping the line every time somebody insults me. But I couldn't tell you where that happened or even when it started happening. All I know is that one day I went from being a person who was always mad and angry at everybody to being a person who just let everything roll off like water off a duck's back. I can remember going to my teacher one time and saying, and Peter was sitting, he was sitting there at the table, and I said to her, Peter seems like he's always angry all the time. And she looked at Peter and she said, is that true? And Peter said, yes. And she said, well, apologize. And Peter apologized for nothing. And it was so funny that I couldn't, I couldn't help laughing at myself more than anybody.
Yeah, we had a teacher who was wonderful, and because part of her function was to be marriage counselor. And she did very well because we stayed together. We were with her for 20 years.
I
and,
think we're
yeah.
together partly because of that, because we went through the most stormy time with Chiba Sensei.
Yeah.
But it was just for the eye. And I felt so free to say Peter's always mad all the time. Later on, I realized I was saying I'm always mad all the time. And she knew that. So she just said to Peter, we'll apologize.
I was happy to.
I know, and Peter apologized. And I felt really silly. Those make the biggest changes in your life, really. It's when you have to look at yourself, and she always had that capacity to make you look at yourself rather than somebody else. Anyway, so somewhere along the line in this practice, we really do make transformative changes, and we don't even realize when we're doing it. Just somewhere you look back and you say, well, I was like this, and where did that person go? Where is that person? And how did this one get here? And you have no idea how that happened, but you just know that it has happened and that it wouldn't have happened without meditation. So I think meditation is like the greatest thing there is.
Rachel or Jay, want to keep
And
going?
Chiba Sensei is like the second greatest thing there is. Rachel?
Now I don't remember the reference. Maybe it's Fuji or being time. I don't know, but everyone's talked about this stream being in a boat, sinking to the bottom, all the rest. But it just reminds me, and probably Chris knows the reference, but or either of you do, but somewhere Dogen Zenji talks about, whether on the mountaintops but when you're, I think, ocean, but it's still you're in water. You walk with your feet on the ocean floor. So that does away with the boat. You can ditch the boat. In his world, you can. Anyway, I'm laughing, but that was my image all of a sudden, that he very specifically said feet on the ocean bed. And I don't remember where, but.
Thank you. Thank you.
It hadn't occurred to me to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.